Hi, Petway Patriots. I'm Mrs. Fiore, and I'm going to read to you a very special story about my favorite holiday, Thanksgiving. And I love the message in this story because it reminds us that what we have to eat and the things that we have is not as important as who we share our holiday with. We share it with the people that we love. So I hope you enjoy this story. Here we go. And the story is called Thanksgiving at the Tappletons. And the author is Eileen Spinelli, and it's illustrated by Marianne Coco Leffer. Thanksgiving at the Tappletons. Thanksgiving at the Tappletons was always a big day. It included the whole Tappleton family, which was Mr. and Mrs. Tappleton, Jenny and Kenny Tappleton, Grandma and Grandpa Tappleton, Aunt Hedda, Uncle Fritz, and of course the turkey and all the trimmings. On the morning of Thanksgiving, Mrs. Tappleton got up when it was still dark. She lit the oven, and there was a knock at the door. It was Mike the milkman. "Good morning, Mrs. Tappleton. I thought you might like some eggnog for the holiday." Mrs. Tappleton reached for the eggnog, and the turkey slipped out from underneath her arm. Now, on a warmer day, this might not have been a problem, but this Thanksgiving day was very, very cold, and the step was covered with ice. Before Mrs. Tappleton and Mike could even think, the turkey had slithered into the yard. "Get it!" shouted Mrs. Tappleton. Mike reached out, but the turkey skidded past him, through the gate, and into the street. "Hurry!" screamed Mrs. Tappleton. "Stop that turkey!" The milkman chased the turkey, and Mrs. Tappleton chased the milkman, and the turkey slid down the hill and into the pond. Plop, splash, it bubbled out of sight. When Mr. Tappleton came down to breakfast, he took a long sniff. "I don't smell any turkey," he said to his wife. Of course you don't smell turkey," she replied. "You have a cold." "I don't have a cold," he insisted. Mrs. Tappleton shook some pepper into the air. Her husband sneezed. "See, you do have a cold," she said. After breakfast, Mr. Tappleton put on his hat, gloves, scarves. "I'm going to the bakery to buy our pies." Mrs. Tappleton handed him his boots. "Wear these," she said. "I know for a fact it's very slippery out there." Sim's Bakery was so crowded that the line was out onto the sidewalk. Mr. Tappleton hated to wait in lines, so he went to the diner for a cup of coffee. But when he got back, the lines were gone, and so were all the pies. No pumpkin, no mincemeat, no rhubarb. Mr. Tappleton was afraid to go home with nothing. "2 boxes tied up with string, please," he said. Mrs. Sims stared at him. "You mean 2 empty boxes?" "That's right," he said. When he got home, Mrs. Tappleton said, "They feel very light." "Certainly they are light," retorted Mr. Tappleton. "Mrs. Sims prides herself on how light her pies are." Mrs. Tappleton set the table. She called up to her son, "Kenny, can you make the salad? There's lettuce in the crisper and carrots and radishes too." Kenny's face grew pale. Just yesterday he emptied the crisper and fed the vegetables to the rabbits in Mr. Butterworth's class. How could he tell his mother? He couldn't. So he covered the empty salad bowl with aluminum foil and stuck it back in the refrigerator. When the others went to pick up the relatives at the train station, Jenny stayed behind to make the mashed potatoes. Every year this was her job, and she loved it. This year, she thought, "I'll make it even better. I'll use a blender." Just as Jenny flicked on the switch, the phone rang. It was her best friend, Nora. If there was one thing Jenny loved to do better than make mashed potatoes, it was to talk. Jenny talked and talked and talked to Nora. She might still be talking today had there not been a glup of something wet that hit her on the back of the head. She turned around to see what it was, and splat! Another glup hit her right in the face. The blender was going wild. Mashed potatoes were flying everywhere. Jenny didn't even hang up or say goodbye to Nora. She hung up the phone. She scrubbed her face, wiped mashed potatoes from everything and everywhere in the kitchen. She finished just in time as the others came back. Uncle Fritz patted his stomach. "I'm hungry," he said. Grandfather Tappleton laughed. "I'm as hungry as an elephant." Everyone sat at the table. It was a Tappleton tradition for Grandmother to say the Thanksgiving prayer. "As soon as the turkey's ready," she smiled. "I'm as hungry as two elephants," Grandfather laughed. Mr. Tappleton went to the oven. "I'll carve the turkey now." He opened the oven door. "The turkey is gone," he said. Mr. Tappleton searched on the table and under the sink and in every kitchen cabinet. He looked in the broom closet. "I can't find the turkey anywhere." Mrs. Tappleton took a deep breath. She told the others how their fine turkey had slid out the door and down the steps and across the street and into the yard and through a gate and down into the pond with a plop splish gone. "So much for the turkey," said Uncle Fritz. His stomach rumbled a little louder. "Never mind," said Aunt Hedda. "We'll fill up on all the trimmings." "I'll get the salad," Jenny said. "Grandmother can say the prayer then." Jenny set the bowl on the table and peeled off the aluminum foil. Everyone stared at the salad that was not there. "I fed the rabbits at school," confessed Kenny. Uncle Fritz looked downright gloomy. "So much for the salad." His stomach rumbled again. "I'm as hungry as three elephants," Grandfather sighed. Kenny jumped up. "I know, we'll have Jenny's mashed potatoes." He brought the pot from the kitchen and lifted the lid. "I was on the phone," Jenny said meekly, "and the blender just went wild." "So much for the potatoes." Uncle Fritz's stomach rumbled even more. "I'm as hungry as four elephants," said Grandfather. "The pies!" cried Mrs. Tappleton. I'll say our grace as soon as we cut up the pies," said Grandmother. Mrs. Tappleton brought the boxes, set them down, and untied the string. "You brought home empty boxes?" She glared at Mr. Tappleton, who covered his ears. "5 elephants," groaned Grandfather. The dining room was quiet. Everyone looked down at the empty table. Uncle Fritz muttered something, but it could not be heard above the rumble of his stomach. A tear rolled down Jenny's cheek. "No Thanksgiving dinner. Nothing to be grateful for," said Kenny. Grandmother smiled. "Of course there is always something. There is more to Thanksgiving than a turkey and all the trimmings." And then Grandmother Tappleton asked everyone to bow their heads and to hold hands around the dining room table. And this is the Thanksgiving prayer that she said. "Turkeys come and turkeys go, and trimmings can be lost, we know. But we're together, that's what matters, not what's served upon our platters." "That was wonderful," said Aunt Hedda. Mrs. Tappleton jumped up. "We have liverwurst and cheese in the refrigerator." "I'll help fix the sandwiches," offered Mr. Tappleton. Jenny wiped her tears away. "I'll get pickles." Kenny laughed. "I'll open a jar of applesauce for dessert." And so, the Tappleton family had their Thanksgiving dinner after all. Uncle Fritz's stomach stopped rumbling, and Grandfather Tappleton ate enough liverwurst to feed 6 elephants. In fact, everyone had plenty to eat, but most of all, they had each other. The end. I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. See you soon.